I like how tight he keeps the car on the right-hand side. Gives him space on these last two turns. To the line then, it's Kevin Siggy, who's won again!
Welcome everyone to Overtake in 2022. My name is René, and if you're an avid viewer of our channel, then you probably can spot what type of set this is, as we're here in the Nitro Nights, which normally means I would sit down on the couch, talk to our guests about all the hot topics in the sim racing world. But to kick off our year in style, we thought about, hey, why not bring you a special episode and make sure that we can really celebrate sim racing and the thrill of competition. For that, I would say we do first a quick rebrand of the studio to get everyone into the mood of what we're about to see here, and that is the eRoc Championship. First of all, if that doesn't sound familiar to you, then please stop living under a stone the previous years, as this is obviously based on the legendary and iconic motorsport event that is Race of Champions. What does that mean? In eRoc, actually, we've got gamers and sim racers, the best from all around the globe, going head-to-head and try to get a ticket to the real-life Race of Champions. Meanwhile, you know, in Race of Champions, you find all the big names from all the different categories of motorsport out there, from Le Mans to Formula 1 to touring car, rallying. Everything is in there, and the same we do here on the virtual side of it. As I said, they're going head-to-head on a very technical track at each other, and they're trying to move around the tournament tree is what we're doing here in eRoc and in Race of Champion itself. Starting off, although we do with the group stage, where we got 8 drivers going head-to-head, trying to get points in this case, as they get 1 per win when going at each other to move forward to our semi-final. I said already, we're normally talking about big names when it's about the Race of Champions, and so we do in the eRoc, in the virtual version of the Race of Champions. And the first match that you will see up today is Moritz Löhner against Jernej Simončič. Löhner, obviously a driver that you might know already from not just the world of race room, but also from competing in the DTM Trophy here in Germany as well. Jernej Simončič, one of the big names from rFactor 2, with several wins to his name on that simulator. So that will be a hot one to kick off the day, I'll tell you that. And I really wonder who's getting the upper hand on that one. In total, we got 3 stages of the group phase. So on the second stage, we got new matchups. And in that one, we actually get a big match between James Baldwin, who is the winner of 2022 eRoc, 21 eRoc. Not yet 2022, is he? And 2020, so he has a back-to-back champion already to his name. Can he maybe add a third one? But he will go up against Bono Huis, who was the winner of the rFactor 2 Formula Pro Series, and basically everything else that had open wheelers in them in the sim racing world. He also sat in a real cockpit already, so another of the big matchups that we have. Also, Jon Robertson against Kevin Siggy. Kevin Siggy, part of the OG sim racing team, Team Redline, known to wins as well. He was fighting against Bono Huis actually in the rFactor 2 Pro Series, and he will face Jon Robertson, who is the champion of the iRacing Rallycross world. So that's completely different driving styles between these two, and that's what makes eRoc and the Race of Champions so interesting, that we see different categories in motorsport fighting it out on our small track. Last round of today's group stage, we still got 2 names to talk about. One of them is Lohan Blanc. He is the 2021 World Rally Champion in the virtual part of it, so on the WRC games that you know from Big Ben and Kiloton. Several championships to his name already. He wasn't champion in 2020, but he was in 2019 and I think even 2018. So he knows how to operate a car in very narrow roads. And the other one is Jarno Opmeer, and not less impressive Veta when we talk about Jarno Opmeer. He's obviously the 2021 F1 Esports World Champion, and he will also try his best to go up to the semi-final. Now we got all of that out of the way, basically, and I'll quickly remind you of what we're doing. So we got the group stage. Everyone got 3 races per race win as they go at each other twice in the matchup. So Kevin Siggy gets Bono Huis. They will race twice to do both lanes. You will see that once we head over to the track. And for each race and for each win, you get a point. Obviously, you're not getting one for losing. And the guys with the biggest points to their name will then move forward to our semi-final. But enough of me talking, and here in the studio, we obviously want to see racing action, and that couldn't be more thrilling than with the voice of Ben Constanturas. So let's kick it off.
Race 1 of Group A, Moritz Löhner versus Jernej Simončič. Our Factor 2 specialist. Moritz Löhner, more of an iRacing kind of a guy, although has really made his name on Race Room, winning the ADAC GT Masters Championship for the last couple of years. And our first look at this spectacular ROC Sweden circuit. Not the actual layout that the professionals will use when they go there in February, but a very, very similar layout and a similar feel to these electric supercars. A little bit sideways, a little bit hot into quite a technical section there. The famous Race of Champions bridge is the way we end the lap, and there is quite a split between the two lanes. Watching Simončič on that first lap, we now switch to Moritz Löhner, who is 5.1 seconds faster. But as I say, I think he has the faster of the two lanes, so we expect that the gap will slightly reduce come the end of this race. Let's see how Moritz is dealing with the car. Quite a lot of understeer into the corner, but the car staying relatively straight, and just a flick to get the car back under power. That does seem to be the trickiest point there, just before the bridge. And does look as though Moritz Löhner has this one. Looking to the left-hand side, there's a big gap. 1.3 seconds. Lerner's the first winner. We swap lanes now. Moritz Löhner on the inside and Jernej Simončič on the outside. Remember, the outside line was faster on the first lap. Doesn't mean that it's faster overall, though. We would expect the two lanes to be exactly the same. They're covering exactly the same track. Just a slight difference in approach to that first corner, depending whether you're on the inside and the outside. Much faster on the outside line. Simončič able to drift around the outside, whereas Lerner's got the really fiddly inside line. And we watched Lerner drive this. Again, just that little bit of understeer. And then just gets on the power to flick the rear around and drifts out the exit. It's actually quite a lot of grip, a lot more grip than you would imagine if you've ever walked on ice. It's not an easy thing to do, but these cars are equipped with narrow tyres, studded tyres, and does mean that the slip angle not quite as great as you would imagine. 3.9 seconds the gap between Simončič and Lerner after the first lap. So remember, it's 5.2 last time. So I reckon that is still slightly advantage Simončič, but not by much, as we now switch to the Slovenian. Our Factor 2 expert, winner of the Pro Series in the GT category this year. That's just the highlight in 2021 of his amazing achievements. I like the fact that he's moving the car around a lot. It looks good, but it's obviously not quite as fast as Lerner, who takes a second victory. This time, 1.4 the gap. Right, we switch to Lohan Blanc and Jarno Opmeer. Lohan is the WRC esports champion, and Opmeer, obviously F1 esports champion 2 times over now. Opmeer with some real racing experience. Lohan Blanc with none, although he has plenty of experience sliding around in WRC, whether it be 8, 9 or 10. He's still been a champion over the last couple of years. And this is WRC versus F1 on a track that you would say lends itself to sliding about, lends itself to the off-road nature of Lohan Blanc. You can see he's just ahead there, but it's very difficult to know who is ahead, as Jarno very, very neat through this fiddlier section. Not quite as sideways even than Moritz Löhner that we saw in the last of our Group A matches. Opmeer is under the tunnel and then heads out onto the straight, but Blanc is only 3/10 ahead. Now we expect Blanc to be a lot further ahead, knowing that there is quite a big split between these two lanes. So I would say that's good advantage to Jarno Opmeer, the Mercedes-Benz Works esports driver. Yes, known for his F1 exploits, his championships there, but he's also very accustomed to other categories. And Lohan Blanc, I think, maybe one of the few competitors that has a handbrake because, oh, he hits the wall hard there. Really sliding around and making a right mess of things, actually. So the sliding is not working for him. And Jarno Opmeer already across the line. So Lohan Blanc is a long, long way behind, and that's one win to F1 over WRC. We switch lanes. Opmeer on the outside, Blanc on the inside. Fiddlier section for Blanc, otherwise known as Nexel in his championship in WRC. And first corner, big understeer. Now, these cars don't have gears. You don't have to worry about that because they are an electric car. One single fixed gear. All the torque straight away. We spoke a little bit about the studs that they use, giving them quite a lot of grip. And these cars were built and set up by the guys who actually built the cars in the real world. The Ericsson brothers love their sim racing. And so we were able to send the car and track to them. And say, hey, is this how it feels like in real life? And a little bit of work later, and they confirmed that this is how the RX 2E, the electric rallycross subcategory, feels. Not much of a contest going on here. Jarno Opmeer with a big advantage after the first loop, and I think that will only grow. We now switch to Opmeer to see how he's handling it. I love to see Lohan Blanc sideways. I love to see him throwing the car around, but it's clearly not working. It's not fast on this particular surface. And maybe with different tyres, it would be slightly different. Very narrow under the tunnel there. Jarno Opmeer being very, very tidy. And he comes across the line. A 1:26.7 is the fastest time so far. Let's switch to Group B then. And the first race is our iRacing RX World Champion against James Baldwin, who is, of course, reigning eRoc Champion and reigning eRoc Virtual Champion as well. He won the virtual contest that had to be done under lockdown conditions when we were unable to run Race of Champions in the real world. And before that, he qualified through the Invitational, through this very competition, a couple of years ago to get himself to Mexico, where he then beat Brendan Lee, he beat Nils Naujoks, he beat Sebastian Job, and ended up representing Team Sim Racing alongside Enzo Benito in Mexico. Does that give him an advantage? I don't think so. This is such a different characteristic of track, of car, of competition. Yeah, okay, so this short, fast nature of race, basically a qualifying lap each race, perhaps suits his style a little bit. He understands that. There's maybe a little bit less pressure on his shoulders. But at the moment, Robertson has a 3.4 second advantage over James Baldwin. Although he is in that lane, that has the advantage. Nice and neat there from Robertson, who's used to that low grip nature of iRacing on the Rallycross series. And it is James Baldwin who takes the victory. Interestingly, Baldwin's slightly slower in the first of our matchups than Jarno Opmeer. Opmeer very, very clean with the way he was driving. And perhaps Baldwin needs to tidy himself up a little bit. Inside lane now for Jon Robertson. Again, a man you would look at and go, iRacing RX World Champion, got to be a favourite, surely, in this competition. But he's got to get used to how the Assetto Corsa platform works, feels, and of course this very unique nature. Quite clean going into the corner there. Seen a lot of people very clean in and then less clean out. And Robertson trying to be very tight, trying to drive the shortest line, but just doesn't seem to be able to carry the speed, does he? Baldwin a long way up the road. 4.3 seconds the gap. I think that's too much to overcome. But of course on this type of a track, so many opportunities for little errors. as we now switch to James Baldwin on the tighter inside line. Oh, Baldwin going wide there. Maybe that would work. Certainly drove a longer route, but perhaps he was able to carry a bit more speed. Much neater through there than we've seen anybody else. Probably because he wasn't carrying the speed. Nice and tight round the last couple of turns, and it is going to be a Baldwin victory. Not by much, though. The second two of Group B are Kevin Siggy and Bono Huis. Bono in the white machine, the predominantly black machine for Kevin Siggy. And Bono, very much a single-seater driver, very much a R-factor guy. Of course, has plenty of wins to his name over the years, including that famous victory in the very first Formula E Vegas Visa E-race. I might have got that wrong, round the wrong way, but he took a decent chunk of money away from victory there. But hasn't really had the opportunities in the real world. Two Dutchmen. Oh, and that's a mistake, just clipping the barrier there. Two Dutchmen in our competition. Huis and Opmeer, both from the Mercedes-Benz stable as well. Works Mercedes drivers, that new team that has kind of spawned out of the F1 Esports campaign, but Bono Huis representing them in R-Factor 2, and therefore representing them in the Le Mans Virtual as well. Coming up this weekend. Siggy's a lot faster though. Here is Kevin Siggy, Team Redline driver. Also, well, Bono Huis is also Team Redline, so this is kind of a Redline versus Redline matchup. But Siggy, Redline BMW. And over the line, winner with a 26.4, fastest time so far. The second match is then Moritz Löhner versus Lohan Blanc. Lerner with 2 victories after the first round. And Lohan Blanc with 0 victories. So form would suggest this is going to go the way of Moritz Löhner. With real-world experience, of course. Oh, look at that. Lohan Blanc. You could tell the car that he's in. Absolutely beautifully drifting everywhere. Unfortunately, though, it doesn't seem to be that fast. Big sideways moment again. Bit too over-enthusiastic, I think, there. But look at how he's driving this. What a shame that it's not faster, because it's beautifully spectacular. Throwing the car around. And I say, because of his WRC experience, he probably is one of the few drivers here that has a handbrake. Many of them will have programmed the handbrake either to their paddles, or a button. Now we have a switch to Moritz Löhner. You can see how different the style is. Lerner keeping that car straight, waiting for the grip to appear, and then getting on the throttle without the slidey stuff. And it does seem to be faster. Lerner with real-world experience in the ADAC GT4. For Door Motorsports. His the team that he's kind of formed, actually. Door Esports. And Lerner's going to take a victory here quite easily. 26.6 for Lerner. And Blanc comes across the line 3.4 back. Now, if Lerner takes the victory in this 4th race that he's participated in, only got 2 more races to go, so that should guarantee him a spot going through into the semis. And you would say, considering Lohan Blanc's form so far, that is probably likely. Lerner with a little mistake there, though. We're watching him in the black machine, and seemed a little bit wide through that second turn. He's on the fiddlier first part of the lap. Now, there would be sometimes an advantage to doing the more open stuff first when your tyres are cooler, but of course tyre warming is not much of a thing when you're around the Arctic Circle at -11. So no tyre warming here, and Lerner and Blanc with very, very similar situations with their car. Not a bad first lap from Lohan Blanc on the outside line. 43.2. We've seen 42s from most people. Oh, but that's a mistake. He's touched the wall. Rear end just got away from him. And also Lohan's ping not looking particularly great, so the car jumping around all over the place. Then he sends it hard. And this is going to be a victory for Moritz Löhner, I think. Oh, and he spun it. That is it. All over them for Lohan Blanc. 2 sideways. Moritz Löhner takes the victory. His 4th victory, and Blanc is sadly out of the competition. Second half of the group is Simončič and Opmeer. Opmeer with 2 wins. Simončič with no victories to his name after being defeated twice by Moritz Löhner. And let's watch Jarno Opmeer on the inside fiddly lane. Gets the car beautifully rotated there. Does look a little bit wide from that camera angle, but I think that's really the line. It is the correct way to go about it. Oh, hits the wall. Hits the wall. Twice. Opmeer's round. That's a spin for the F1 Esports World Champion. And he took 2 victories in the first round of group matches, but he's not going to win this one. Simončič is going to take it. Unless Simončič makes a mistake, and it's not been a particularly fast lap from Simončič. 43.0. We've seen 42s quite regularly, even from himself. But Opmeer is so far back here, 13 seconds back. So let's now watch Simončič, make sure he makes no mistake. And it's good to see that those snow banks are doing their thing. Anyone who's been part of Race of Champions in the past knows that the walls are very, very close. You know, there is no runoff area at all, and sometimes the walls can be your friend. In fact, even on the frozen Arctic Circle, sometimes walls can be your friend, but we've designed these walls not to be very friendly. Very important that you can't be running around the outside. Simončič takes the victory. Not a very fast race, though. 29.0. The second race then, between Opmeer and Simončič. Opmeer in the outside white car now. And Simončič on the inside line. Already with a big advantage. Yes, you have the inside line there, but I feel as though Simončič particularly good through that first corner. Lots of work going on the steering wheel, the front wheels turning left and then right. This is not what either of these guys are used to. GT cars for Simončič, F1 Esports for Jarno Opmeer. Precision is key, but precision is key here, but in a very different way. Precision whilst the car is moving and sliding around, whereas in F1 Esports, obviously, it's nails to the ground. 42.1 is much, much better from Jarno Opmeer this time. 4.9 the gap. I'd say Opmeer has an advantage in this second encounter between the two of them. Nice and tight inside line there from Opmeer. Really waiting for the front end to grip. Lots of understeer. But a shortest route. He's very, very clean, isn't he? Nowhere does it look like he's going too hot into the corner. And he's just trying to drive the shortest line. Over the line, and he takes a victory. The third victory for Opmeer. Let's switch to Group B then. And it's Jon Robertson versus Kevin Siggy. Siggy in the white car on the right-hand side. Off we go. No win so far for Robertson, beaten twice by James Baldwin. Siggy, much more successful with 2 wins over Bono Huis. They were easy wins. This probably is going to be a slightly harder encounter for Siggy. We should expect Siggy to have the advantage here, I think. It doesn't look like it is. Robertson Sorry, Robertson with the advantage on the first lap. Siggy with a disadvantage. 4.2 though. That is a big gap. I think Jon Robertson here is in the advantage. Outside line first, then inside line. Does seem to be the slightly preferred way of doing things. There does seem to be a slight advantage, but not much. And of course it's nullified by the fact that these guys race both inside and outside lanes, so it doesn't really matter. A nice orange glow here in Peter Haspa as Jon Robertson comes over the line and wins by 0.2 of a second. The closest race we've seen so far. Can he do it again in the second of our encounters? Siggy versus Robertson. Oh, Robertson already hot into the first turn. That's not going to help his advantage at all. He really does need to get a second victory to keep his chances of progressing alive. And what a shame, what a surprise, I think, really, to see Siggy being beaten by Robertson. Because Siggy looks so strong in the early races. Robertson going wide again. He's just getting a bit messy. He's just getting a bit greedy into the braking zones. It's very neat on acceleration. It's got that bit nailed, not too sideways. Whoa, Kevin Ziggy's pushing hard though. 41.9. That has got to be one of the fastest first laps we've seen. And Robertson is 5.4 back. Advantage to Kevin Ziggy. BMW Works driver. Team Redline driver. Ziggy. Nicely set up there. Seen a lot of people being very neat in the braking zone, but Siggy had the car sideways, pointing in the right direction, and scrubbing off speed by placing the car sideways. To the line then, Kevin Siggy with his third victory of the evening at a 25.9. First man into the 25s. Baldwin versus Bono Huis. Huis with no victories, Baldwin with 2 victories. You would expect this to go the way of eRoc champion James Baldwin. Of course, a year in GT3 in the real world in the British GT Championship. And that was thanks to his World's Fastest Gamer 2 victory. He really did. I feel as though when we first met James Baldwin in eRoc in 2019, it was the very beginning for him. He was a Veloce driver at the time, but he'd only done a couple of things in Project Cars, some kind of low profile events, and then suddenly here is a guy with a little bit of single-seater experience as well, which certainly would have helped him, suddenly in front of the world stage, racing and meeting the likes of Sebastian Vettel, Tom Christensen, and when we go to Peter Habspa as well, Sebastian Loeb will be back at Race of Champions. That's very exciting to see on the snow and ice. And from there, Baldwin obviously winning World's Fastest Gamer 2, becoming a GT driver, then winning SRO Esports this year. That's actually the reason why he's invited here, not because of eRoc, but because he won SRO Europe. And he is a legitimate 2021 champion. Victory over Bono Huis. Change lanes. Baldwin with the possibility of qualifying here, because we saw Jon Robertson and Kevin Siggy share victories in that last matchup. It'll be between those two as to who goes through into the semi-finals. James Baldwin just needs to win this and he'll be with 4 victories. Those other two will be with 3. Bono Huis definitely has not got the handle on this kind of racing. Bit of a shame, because he is certainly much better than what he's being able to show here at eRoc. We should mention also that they hadn't really got very much practice. There was the opportunity to have 4 or 5 days practice, and many of the drivers, because of preparations for Le Mans Virtual and other things, said, actually, do you know what? I'd rather just have 2 days. So the cars and track was only released to them 48 hours before the competition, and therefore not a lot of time to experience it. Of course, it's a track of only 1 minute and 20 seconds, so not a huge amount to learn in terms of that. It is quite a slow track as well, but it's a very unique format. It's a very unique car. It's not something that you can pick up and play on Assetto Corsa normally. And over the line, James Baldwin takes another victory over Bono Huis. We move on now to our third and final races in the matches, in the group stages here of Race of Champions eRoc Invitational. Lerner versus Opmeer. Lerner with 4 victories to his name. Opmeer with 3 victories to his name. So how will this play out? The winner of each group will meet the second place driver of the other group. So Group A's winner meets Group B's second place and vice versa. And with 4 wins to his name, Moritz Löhner pretty much is guaranteed to go through, we think. Opmeer needs to win this to qualify. If he does so, that would then mean that Jernej Simončič, if you kind of assume that he's going to beat Lohan Blanc in the next matches, which we would assume, then it will be a match between those two as to who goes through. 4.2 the gap between Lerner and Opmeer. I would say that's advantage Lerner at the moment. Let's watch him in this second lap now. Oh, mistake! Just clipped the inside wall there from Moritz Löhner. Is that enough to allow Jarno Opmeer to take the victory in this first encounter? Nice and sideways from Moritz Löhner. The car moving around nicely. It looks great, doesn't it? I don't know how fast it is because we see Opmeer much tidier to the line. It is Opmeer by 0.14 of a second. It's so close, and Opmeer has now got himself a 4th victory. This, therefore, to decide who will go first and who will go second in the group. Opmeer with the outside line. This is the favoured line in the white car on the outside. Lerner has the inside line, so potentially at this moment is a slight advantage. A disadvantage, sorry. Lerner, the very first man to sign up to eRoc, the very first person keen to be part of it. He will go through to the semi-finals, and that still means he can qualify into the finals. But you would seriously want to win your group. Oh, a little touch again from Moritz Löhner. The pressure's building. The mistakes are coming out now. He'll want to be racing the second person in the group because James Baldwin, we would assume, would be the winner of Group B. Lerner 4.4 back from Opmeer. Opmeer has the advantage then. That inside line, it's a big split. It's about, I'd say it's about 4 seconds, the split. The difference between lane 1 and lane 2. Of course, then when the bridge, they swap round if you're not familiar with the eRoc format. So they are using the same bit of tarmac, just half being used at one time and the other half on the other point. I think here, Moritz Löhner's too far back. It's a slow last part for the inside line to get back to the outside before the line. And it's very fast over the bridge. But to the line, it is Opmeer. He wins with the fastest time of the day so far. So these two races then, Blanc and Simončič really for pride. We know who's gone through. Jarno Opmeer, with 5 victories to his name, is the winner of the group. The unlikely winner of the group, I think. Moritz Löhner looked to be the strongest, certainly in the practice sessions, but Opmeer has won Group A. And Simončič, even if he gets both victories here against Lohan Blanc, he can't go through into the semi-finals. That would be only 3 wins to his name. And unfortunately, Lohan Blanc hasn't done enough either. Certainly, if there were points for style, Lohan Blanc would be winning them. The ping is a little buggy, that's for sure, so we're not getting to see exactly how he's driving. But the way he's setting the car up into this, particularly the fiddly inside line, it really does look fantastic. Fully sideways, loads of work going on the steering wheel. And it's just a shame that it's not faster, really, because it's so entertaining to drive. Simončič beating Blanc by 0.9 of a second. They swap the lanes. One last race for these guys in the ROC Invitational. Remember, if you're watching today and you fancy your chances at this, qualifying opens after this broadcast on Race of Champions / eRoc, and you can register for one of 8 races that'll be happening over the next week or so. Straight knockout competition. 16 drivers per competition. Competitions being driven on all different Race of Champions tracks. Oh, Lohan Blanc to the wall there again. So there are some opportunities for tarmac qualification as well as dirt qualification on the Gran Canaria track that was built a few weeks, well, about a year ago now. And then the 8 winners will then progress into our qualifying final, which will be broadcast here on Overtake at the end of January. And all of these guys, Simončič and Blanc, they can be part of it too. Absolutely no reason why they can't have themselves a crack at it. Here comes Simončič though, under the bridge. And it's going to be a double victory for him, so he will pick up 3 victories, but it's not enough to qualify. We move on to Group B then. Jon Robertson and Bono Huis. Robertson with just the single victory to his name so far. Bono with no victories. And already James Baldwin with 4 victories to his name. So if Jon Robertson can win all of these races and James Baldwin beats Kevin Siggy, then we look at the fastest time set. Oh, John. No, that was Bono, sorry. Understeering heavily into the snowbank. It would give Jon Robertson 3 victories. It would mean that Kevin Siggy would have 3 victories if James Baldwin beats him twice. And James would then have the 6 victories and the win. So there's still a possibility here for Jon Robertson. 42.1 is a very fast first lap, actually. That's a really good effort from the iRacing Rallycross World Champion. Kawanda supported, part of that massive iRacing team, and hopefully they become more and more a team of all the different platforms. The Porsche esports team in R Factor 2. Oh, he's clipped the wall. He's clipped the wall. It's not going to be quite as fast as perhaps he was hoping. To the line then, it's going to be Jon Robertson. A 27.2 is slow. Robertson with that victory to his name. Let's see if he can do it again. Inside line this time for Robertson. So the slower first corner. And I think it's really the outside line is just a lot faster, a lot sweepier. We haven't seen too much of it. Nice opportunity to see the 2 cars beside each other. That's very much the Race of Champions way. Ah, a cool little crossover as well. Over the line, Bono Huis with a 43.2. It's slow, unfortunately. And Robertson is close enough here. So Robertson could take this 3rd victory. That would then really place the onus on Kevin Siggy in the next matchups. If Siggy can't beat James Baldwin, and that's a really big ask, Siggy could be going home, depending on the time that Robertson has set. I would suggest that probably Kevin Siggy has gone faster than Jon Robertson, but either way, Great to get some victories to his name. We watch Bono Huis around the last corner, but Robertson has taken it. Big one now. The last 2 races of the group stages. Kevin Siggy versus James Baldwin. Siggy on the outside, Baldwin on the inside, Baldwin in the white. Nice and neat through the first turn. Seen lots of people run wide there. He just was able to carry the speed so much better and get on the power so much quicker. Now, super careful. Not too slidey, not too sideways. Baldwin's so neat, very much a circuit racer style. You can see how different it is to Lohan Blanc's style, for instance. And then waits for the understeer. Waits for the car to stop understeering before using the throttle to turn through the second half of the big tight hairpin there. It'll be advantage Kevin Siggy. 41.8. Oh, it's fast. Baldwin's quite a long way back here. 4.5 seconds. I think Kevin Siggy's got this. Let's watch him on the second half of this Peter Havspa fake Swedish track. Very, very clean. Really not sideways at all. It does look as though that's the way to get these cars to work best. But I do love Kevin Siggy's approach to that corner. He seems to carry so much more speed into the apex. Jarno Opmeer and James Baldwin sit understeering into it. But Siggy's got that wider, flowier outside line. Under the tunnel with no sign of James Baldwin. But to the line, who's it going to be? Siggy! So that eliminates Jon Robertson out of it. And again, we have a match for who is best in the group. Baldwin versus Siggy. Baldwin with 4 victories. Siggy with 4 victories. Whoever wins this wins the group. And the winner of the group will match up with Moritz Löhner. Second in the group will face Jarno Opmeer. If James Baldwin wins this, it will be a Baldwin versus Lerner, and then Siggy versus Opmeer. That's how the matches would be. And Baldwin with the advantage. A 42-0 though, we've seen 41s. And Siggy is closer, 3.6. I reckon the split's about 4, so that would give Siggy an advantage coming into this second lap. What can Baldwin do? Can he find any more speed? Any more pace? He's not going to be eliminated here. He doesn't have to worry too much about that, but he will want to win the group. There's that different line coming into the hairpin. So different. He's good and neat through that second fiddly section though, isn't he? I like how tight he keeps the car on the right-hand side. Gives him space on these last 2 turns. To the line then, it's Kevin Siggy, who's won again!
Welcome back to the studio, and I have to say, that's one of the few times where I'm kind of jealous. Normally I love being in the studio setup, but that last race was just incredible, and I would have loved to be there with Ben and commentating. What a matchup we just saw between James Baldwin and Kevin Siggy. Absolute dominant fashion. Kevin Siggy beating the 2 times eRoc champion James Baldwin in the very last matchup, and making sure that everyone out there knows that he's one of the candidates that is more than worthy to get the trophy in eRoc 2022. But that means we've got new pairings for you out there, and new pairings to head into the semi-final, where it won't get any easier, as we also switch the system from our group stage to semi-final. Means we're now doing best of 3. So you're not getting an addition anymore in points just for wins. It's you win the first race, that's a point, yes. Your opponent wins another race, that's not a draw and we just keep on going. No, then there's a 3rd race necessary to actually get into the grand finale. And the pairings also not easy at all, as we will see Kevin Siggy going up against Moritz Löhner, and then James Baldwin against Jarno Opmeer. Interesting fight, I would say, because both have been in F1 esports. So both know how to operate an open wheeler in the F1 esports series, but eRoc is something completely different, and I'm really interested in seeing who's coming out on top there. Could it be Baldwin getting his third win in eRoc? Is he someone that can't be beaten? Is it Jarno Opmeer adding another one to his trophy case? Or Kevin Siggy, the all-time favorite of Redline, that gets a crown? Or even Moritz Löhner, just because he is probably one of the coolest hybrid racers out there. Although then we also have to say that Baldwin is a hybrid racer because he raced GT3 Championship in Great Britain. So you can see, once again, I can't really decide who's getting the trophy or who will get the wins in the semi-final. Luckily, I don't have to, because you can watch all of that unfold together with Ben.
Oh, semi-final time. Straight knockout now. Siggy versus Lerner. Siggy on the outside line. So he's got what the drivers think is a slightly better line. And oh, that's a mistake from Moritz Löhner already. Just not getting the car rotated on the very first corner. I love the way he slides the car around though. Lerner's kind of got a middle ground to his driving style. We've got the very clean Baldwin and Opmeer, who likes to keep the car straight. Kevin Siggy's a little bit slidier, and Lerner's definitely the one that likes to get the car rotated and sliding around, but it doesn't look particularly neat from Lerner. Perhaps he's done too many laps. He was really good on those early stages of the group stage. But as this competition's gone on, it's become more and more ragged, missing the apex there, and Kevin Siggy has a 5-second advantage. That's advantage Kevin Siggy in the first of our semi-finals. They will race again for a second time, side by side. And if we have one apiece, then the fastest man gets to choose which lane he starts in for the deciding third race. Slightly different line there from Kevin Siggy. He tried the tighter inside line. All these drivers have been watching the other races, so that Siggy would have seen what other guys have been doing, and just trying then perhaps to drive the Jarno Opmeer line there, seeing if it was different, but didn't look comfortable. He does win though. 1-0, Siggy to Lerner. Siggy on the inside now in the white machine. Lerner on the outside line. Best person through that first corner, categorically, has been James Baldwin tonight. He's carried so much more speed than the rest. Siggy being quite neat here. We saw Moritz Löhner a bit more sideways through those corners in the first of our matchups. Running very, very wide. It's an incredibly precise drive from Kevin Siggy. And again, into there, not quite as hot into that right-hand turn as they cross together. Lerner's going to have the advantage here, but a 42.1, well, 42.2 really, is not quite as fast as he'd want. And I think Kevin Siggy has the advantage with just a 3.6 second difference. Siggy only beaten once throughout the whole of the competition so far by Jon Robertson. That was the only time that he's lost, whereas Lerner losing out to Jarno Opmeer twice. And Lerner under the bridge and towards the line. Oh, Siggy's got it! Second semi-final then. Opmeer versus Baldwin. Baldwin in the white car. Just looks so good through that first turn. I don't know what it is. It just seems to be able to accelerate like nobody else. This is a really hard matchup though. Jarno Opmeer has really shown his pace. Brendan Lee has been previously a qualifier to the 2 eRoc races that have happened, world finals that have happened so far, in Riyadh and then in Mexico City. But that, of course, was on tarmac. It wasn't on ice and snow that they'll be facing in Piet Habsbach. Jarno Opmeer, 42.0. It's in the ballpark. Baldwin is pretty close, but it's going to be tight between the two of them. I'd say there's a tenth of a second in it. Jarno Opmeer putting on a show here. We now follow the Dutchman. Previously a Renault-supported driver in the real world. Then became part of Renault's team in F1 Esports and then moved across to Mercedes and has taken 2 victories in the last 2 years. Kind of replacing Brendan Lee, really. But that was deep from Jarno Opmeer. That just felt a little bit too hot. Maybe that one too, to the line. Who's it going to be? Baldwin! Baldwin with 1 victory. Opmeer needs to fight back here. He's on the inside line. Looks good through that first turn. Where's James Baldwin? Feel as though he might have made a little error in the first corner on the outside line. So tight between the two of them. Baldwin's winning time, keep thought of this, was a 1:26.19. 1:26.19. If Opmeer wins this, then we will go into a third decisive shootout. And whoever has the fastest time so far will choose a lane. It's a slow first lap from Baldwin. 42.6. That is 6 or 7 tenths slower than Opmeer managed last time. And Opmeer is faster and is closer to Baldwin this time. The gap was 0.8, 3.8. Now it's 3.6. This could well be in favour of Jarno Opmeer. And we will go through to that third decisive final. This for a place in the final to face off against Kevin Siggy. Watching James Baldwin through the final turns of this competition. Who's it going to be to the line? Opmeer's done it! And so we have to go through a third decisive. And Opmeer has chosen the outside lane. Baldwin forced to the inside because his lap was slightly slower than Jarno Opmeer by 0.04 of a second. When I say slight, I mean really, really slight. And so Opmeer thinks that he's got a faster route, taking that outside line first and then the inside lane. Baldwin looking really good through the technical section there. Look really neat, really clean. Middle of the road here. What's Opmeer done on the first lap? 42.1. Okay, so it's not massively fast. We have seen people in the 41s before, but Baldwin... Ooh, Baldwin's outside of it. 3.9. I think that's super close between the two of them. I can't call it. I have no idea who's going to win this one. Is it going to be F1 Esports World Champion through to the final, or eRoc 2019 champion and eRoc Virtual 2020 champion, world's fastest gamer, GT driver? I mean, if he goes as a British GT driver and competes against the real drivers again, Baldwin has a real chance of showing them up, but so does Jarno Opmeer. Opmeer with just this last fiddly corner to go. Who's it going to be to the line? It's going to be very, very close!
Down to the wire and all the way to a third race in our second semi-final. Great outlook to what's about to come in our big finale of the Invitational. What races we've already had, but there's still one to come. But before we jump into our Invitation final, we should once again quickly remind ourselves about eRoc, the world of eRoc, and how all of this will work. So this, what you're currently watching, that's the eRoc Invitational, where one of the drivers will join us for the world finale at the 3rd of February. So that's still a bit, right? There's a gap in between, and that gap is your chance to jump in and become part of eRoc and compete yourself. For that, just follow the link down here, sign up for eRoc, and you might end up with us here on the show, or even becoming the next eRoc World Champion and your shot at the Race of Champion, the real world event. But that might be a bit of too much looking into the future, but now you know you can sign up, you can become part, so make sure to do that. But before you jump onto the homepage now and get involved with eRoc, you better watch that final, because, man, this will be a big one, right? So we say goodbye to Moritz Löhner, who lost against Kevin Siggy, and we have to say goodbye to Jon Opmeer, who kind of lost the crown of the best F1 esports driver in this, as it was James Baldwin coming out on top, as we just saw in the previous race. If you're now wondering about the final pairing, doesn't that sound familiar? Kevin Siggy against James Baldwin? Yes, it does, because they faced already in our group stage. And back then, that's not that far away, right? We saw Kevin Siggy sweeping James Baldwin in it 2-0. So a big storyline now is, and the big question is, can James Baldwin overcome that and still be on track for a third world title in a row, right? Winning the Invitational, going to the world final, winning there as well. Or will it be Kevin Siggy? Because there's already a bit of fear in Baldwin, maybe, from losing 2-0. And we could have Kevin Siggy as a newcomer to the world final at the 3rd of February and claiming a trophy there if he has another good day. So that's the big question, and we also got an answer for that. And it will be answered with a live race here with Ben.
The final of the eRoc Invitational is James Baldwin, who's been and done it all before, and Kevin Ziggy. Ziggy in the white machine on the inside line, Baldwin on the outside line. The sun is setting here in Peterhavsbad, -11, -12 degrees. The sun sets at about 2:30 at this time of the year, and provides us with a beautiful backdrop over the Arctic Circle, over the lake. They're racing on a lake. How nuts is that? And we have Kevin Siggy of Team Redline, of Team BMW, versus James Baldwin. Siggy's never experienced eRoc before. Baldwin has. Baldwin's been and done it in Mexico, but on a very, very different way. And Baldwin, one of the fastest first laps we've seen. And he's laid down the gauntlet to Kevin Siggy there, a 41.8. Very rarely have we got into the 41s on that first lap, on that inside lane. And Baldwin has laid down a huge time for the first half of the lap. He's now on the slower, second, more fiddly part of this Peterhavsbad track. But he is certainly very, very neat. And Kevin Siggy is far behind. We've seen those cars run side by side through that section of turns. Baldwin, though, I think has the advantage to the line. And it is going to be race 1 victory for Baldwin. What a time also for James Baldwin in the 25s. It was a huge lap. But now he's got to do it again for the second time. This time, Baldwin has the inside line. He was on the outside last time. And Kevin Siggy can keep this still alive. It's not a lot lost, because if Siggy wins this one, and with a fast time, he could choose his lane for the final race, and still beat James Baldwin. And I think he's got the capability of doing so. He's been very much one of the fastest men all night. That time from Baldwin just now was an extra step from where he's been all evening. Whereas I think Kevin Siggy's already found that step. 41.8, there you go. He is still absolutely flying. Siggy is fast here. Baldwin's 3.9 back is just off. So again, it's going to be amazingly tight as we now follow Kevin Siggy on the second half of the lap. It was so, so close between Baldwin and Jarno Opmeer. Baldwin may not have been it. It was 0.05 of a second between Opmeer getting through and Baldwin getting through. And now Baldwin has got one hand on the trophy. But we come to the line now, and I think Kevin Siggy, if he's driven that second half of the lap good, should win. Yes, he does. Kevin Siggy's win was slower than Baldwin, so Baldwin chose the outside line for this final decisive race of the eRoc Invitational. The winner of this race will be invited to Sweden to participate in the world final against the Overtake Community Champion, voted for by the Overtake audience, and then the qualifying finalist, the qualifying finals being shown here on Overtake at the end of January. Competition opening today, registration for the competition opening today, and then the very best Swedish driver from that competition as well. Those four will participate on a replication of the real virtual track in Peterhavsbad, and also participate on the real track itself and get training. Baldwin, 41.9 for his first lap. Siggy, he's on the wrong side of 4-second gap. This is advantage Baldwin then, and we are going to follow him for the final lap of this Invitational. Can he do it again? In such different conditions, in such different style of driving. Baldwin's so neat though. Just incredible to see, with such limited grip, how Baldwin is able to keep the control of the car and then get the power down when he needs it. Four-wheel drive in these cars. The qualifying final will be driven in a Porsche. It'll be a very, very different style. But who's it going to be to win? Oh! Let's do a slow-mo replay and look at that again. 0.009 of a second. Baldwin is the victor, but only just once again. Scraping through against Opmeer and scraping to victory against Kevin Siggy.
What a comeback by 3 race. Baldwin once again going for probably a 3rd title. At least he got the win in the Invitational already. Means he got his ticket to the big world final of eRoc. Talking about the world final, we said it already, it's on the 3rd of February live here on Overtake.gg. But before that, there's already the open qualifier where you guys can take part. So follow the link once again, sign up for eRoc. The qualifiers actually start tomorrow already. So if you're watching this on the first day when it comes out, that's the 13th of January. Qualifier starting on the 14th of January. So maybe we'll see you in our big broadcast because the top 8 of that qualifier will be another broadcast on the 27th of January. So that will be our next Nitro Nights eRoc special for you to watch. So no matter if you want to take part or if you watch, mark that in your calendar together with the 3rd of February and sign up for eRoc. Enough for today of racing action, but there's plenty more to come on Overtake.gg. So be ready for that. My name is René, and I see you guys there. Ha! I get another camera shot to tell you guys what's out there on the Overtake channel to watch if you don't want to stop right now. And there is so much to watch. For example, you could go down memory lane with our first video and see our interview with James Baldwin, who surprisingly is also the winner of this competition. And we talked about what's the most realistic sim out there. If that's not really what you're looking for now and instead you want to improve on your own driving, just check out a news tutorial with Jarno.